John Corbin isn't your average MC.
I feel on the verge of revelation.
For one thing, the Canadian hip-hop and spoken word artist is also a husband and father, church worship leader, and a high school teacher.
I've been involved in music in terms of the industry about 10 years as a college radio DJ, promoter, and then on the tail end of university decided to take up the microphone and write some rhymes and speak some truth.
Those who live change, not the faking.
A decision he made after watching others freestyle and through prayer.
In my room, in my student housing, and just listening to beats and then praying and freestyling through prayer. Like when there's no one else around, you're not worried about how you sound or what rhymes you mess up or whatever. But then I started to catch that fire.
Please welcome.
And that fire pours onto the stage through his alter ego,
The Runaway.
When I thought about it as a stage name, it became a number of things, running away from sin. It also, for me, means really trying to focus on what's different.
In a genre that's sometimes full of repetitive content and imagery, Corbin runs a different musical track.
There's not rhymes about money, my success with women, what I look like. It is about what goes on underneath. The goal for me was always to make sure I was saying something. And those things need to come out of my own personal and spiritual growth.
Believe in words of the good books.
The Runaway's faith-based, socially conscious lyrics have found an audience among the faithful and beyond church walls.
Where I was coming from was Christian music is the way, and anything outside of Christian music is not appropriate. Now, some people choose to define their parameters like that. For me, I was looking for who is saying things that Jesus would be saying.
Like that.
And those things are not merely limited to what's sold in a Christian bookstore or the Christian market, right? The market does not define the truth of Jesus.
It goes 1, 2, 3, away we go.
His music explores themes like faith.
Indeed, we trust in your purity, a surety we can rest on assuredly.
Love.
How can I explain how you got a hold on my heart?
And even family.
When she says she's breaking up the family, taking on more than she should bear willfully.
Inspiration that comes from navigating life as a curious blend, he says.
I'm obviously mixed heritage. My dad is from Guyana originally, and very Pentecostal. My mom is from a Mennonite background, generations and generations in Canada.
At 12 years old, his parents split up, the beginning of a painful chapter in his life, one he's chronicled in his music.
Because he said to her, you ain't nothing. And he said to me, you ain't nothing.
What I kind of see my life is before the divorce and after. They're kind of two separate pieces. Before, we lived in sort of a lower class neighborhood. I went to a different school and I was friends with kids from other races or, visible minorities. And then after the divorce, we moved into sort of a middle class neighborhood that really fringed on a rich neighborhood. And I went to a rich school that was mostly white kids. At the same time, starting high school with this sort of broken family and trying to process that. It was pretty difficult.
Even more difficult, he says, was the deteriorating relationship with his father.
When we were living in the same house, then he was there, but he wasn't there. When we weren't living in the same house, the amount of effort that he would put into it was about the same. And then you realize that you've been doing all the work.
The relationship is still strained, he admits, but thanks to mentors and counseling, he's been able to forgive.
Lord, I need you.
The same way love is a choice, I think forgiveness can be as well. I think I'm just more sad when you see the situations that come up and you go, yeah, I would like to know what a man does in this situation, but that's not going to stop me from, being a good dad, and not only to my kids, but to my younger brother in some senses, and to whatever kids I come across.
A principle strengthened, he says, by his faith in Jesus.
I feel like God drew a line in the sand with me for reasons that I cannot explain at all. And it's like, no further. this cycle is being broken. We're going to redeem the situation, and we are going to send generations of kids out with the blessing because this man chooses to follow the Lord. I can't explain that, but I feel like for my faith, I've shown how God can redeem, and I stand on that strongly.
Show you what I've got so far.
Those lessons not only translate into the music of the Runaway, but also in how John Corbin, the high school teacher, relates to youth.
I teach grade 11 and 12 English and sociology. I think the public school system is interesting because I think for Christians, people are concerned about what faith can you express, whereas I've found that the open doors for me is what faith you can live. And there are lots of students that see a sense of spiritual richness in you that they don't have in their own lives or their own homes. And there have been some students really wrestling with things that I've found some solace in relationship with me or being in my classroom.
Asking to see free, soaring.
Though he's devoted 10 years of his life to his music, unlike many indie artists, Corbin says the last thing on his mind is making money.
It's the hardest thing in my night to sell CDs. I know that not everyone will be like this. Some people treat it as a job. They approach it as a job. And then I think there's people like me who don't care about money at all in regards to their music. My goals are to have really cool experiences and stories to tell.
Through his music, he hopes those stories impact the cultural landscape.
Because I've surveyed the cultural landscape, what I come to understand now is prophecy, which I didn't understand then. There's a chance to speak into the culture. There's a chance to speak in overarching issues. Like I really want to consider the role of music as prophecy, and in what ways, like I'm speaking over the culture, and let that rain down and land and bring forth life.
Lord, frustration sets in Saturday night and I'm singing blues again.
To find out more about John, the Runaway Corbin, visit 100huntley.com. In Kitchener, Ontario, Bridget Antwi, 100 Huntley Street.
There's no telling where it's gonna